It's Big Board Sports with Roger Wyland on 104.5 The Team.
Tim Graham from the Buffalo News joins us here on Big Board Sports. And Tim said last week that Buffalo Bills owner Terry and Kim Pegula need to fumigate the entire football department. And Tim joins us here on Big Board Sports. I think a lot of us anticipate that Rex Ryan will be fired, the head coach be fired when this season is over on that Monday when the pink slips come out, that Rex is going to be one of those guys out of a job. Tim, good morning and happy holidays. Thanks for a few minutes.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on, Tim. So let me just start with Rex. I mean, is there any question now from what you're hearing and your sources and that Rex, no matter what happens here in the final couple of games, that Rex is going to be fired when the season is over?
There is a question, and I think that whoever wanted Rex Ryan gone, and word maybe leaking out from some people who maybe are overplaying their hand, who want Rex Ryan gone, and these people being within the football administration department at One Bills Drive, that Jason LaCanfora's report of 2 weeks ago and that Adam Schefter from last Sunday, these word getting out that that's what's going to happen, I think might be backfiring because, the ownership is realizing and pretty quickly that if Rex Ryan is to go, then that comes back on a lot of other people who want to keep their jobs in the Bills organization because they made the decision to hire Rex Ryan to begin with. So you're going to fire a guy after 2 years. Well, who hired him? And that comes back on the general manager, Russ Brandon, and the team president, or I should say the general manager, Doug Whaley, and the team president, Russ Brandon. And then maybe you might want to, stop and think for a second. Well, if Rex Ryan's got to go, then maybe everybody's got to go because we can't have the same people who decided that Rex Ryan was a good hire, the same people who fell in love with him to begin with. Maybe they shouldn't have a chance to make the next hire too.
Tim, didn't Terry Pegula say last winter that this was either a playoffs or bust season, meaning they don't get to the playoffs, we're changing coaches?
Well, that report actually was disputed, and we had a little bit of actual Buffalo News on Buffalo News crime. One of our reporters, Vic Carucci, said that there was an ultimatum, and one of our other reporters, Tyler Dunn, who's now at Bleacher Report, reported that there was no ultimatum. So it was a bit of a strange moment, but I guess it goes by what you want to believe. And what the Bills didn't want anybody to think that there was an ultimatum, but there were some people who were telling reporters that absolutely there was an ultimatum. It's a politicking, finger-pointing front office, and it has been since back then, and it's getting even more so now. People are smelling blood in the water, and you have everybody within the front office who wants to keep their job. There are people who want others gone. There are people outside the organization that would like to have a job. Their agents are chiming in and manipulating reports all around the country about who's to blame. And, there are people, it's a dysfunctional front office. And to reiterate my phrase, blood in the water, and the Sharks are circling.
Yeah, well, you wrote fumigate the entire football department. So can you explain, Tim Graham, to our listeners, and I read your column, what you were fundamentally suggesting here regarding the Buffalo Bills at the end of this year?
Sure. Well, like what I just said, that the people who made the decision on Rex Ryan, the people who made the decision on Tyrod Taylor, people who made the decision on Doug Marrone even before, should they have the ability to hire the next coach? Excuse me, or determine who the next quarterback's going to be, or whether or not they even have a franchise quarterback. There are only a handful of teams in the NFL that are in a stage like the Bills are, where they're still searching for their franchise quarterback. Now, granted, there are teams like the Los Angeles Rams and the Philadelphia Eagles. There are teams out there that don't know whether or not they have their franchise quarterback, but at least they've committed to somebody and they've begun the process. Whereas the Bills are, who is it? Tyrod Taylor, they're probably going to have to part ways with him because of the contract situation with him. And then Cardell Jones, who was drafted as a project and has 11 college games at quarterback. You don't know that he's going to be your quarterback. So, the Bills are in a bad spot when it comes to building their roster, the whole thing. So when I say fumigate the whole thing, that comes with a qualifier. If you're going to fire Rex Ryan, then you have to get rid of everybody. Now, if you want to bring back everybody, I don't have a problem with that. I understand the value of continuity. But if you're going to get rid of Rex Ryan, as all these national reports suggest, then the people who hired Rex Ryan to begin with and have gotten the Bills into this situation where they've missed the playoffs 17 straight seasons, they have to go too.
All right, Tim, I'm going to ask you a very unfair hypothetical question. Say you were transplanted into the body of Terry or Kim Pegula, if not that you'd want to do that latter, but if you were the
I don't know. I think that might be fun.
If you, Tim Graham of the Buffalo News, were instantaneously now the owner, what would you do? Do you think it would benefit Buffalo long term to fumigate the entire thing, or do you bring everyone back because you think that the Bills are relatively close?
I would blow it all up and start from scratch, because even if the Bills are close to making the playoffs, I don't think that they've built their roster or their football department to have sustainable winning seasons. They have the most expiring contracts in the NFL at the end of the season. They have the fewest number of their own draft picks of any team in the NFL. They have 22 guys that they've drafted on their active roster of any year. We're going back to Kyle Williams 10 years ago. The Oakland Raiders, meanwhile, have 14 rookies on their 53-man roster right now, and they're heading to the playoffs. And not only that, but they're playing for home field advantage and might get a first-round bye. So that's the way you build a roster. And that general manager has been in charge since Doug Whaley joined the Bills. Now, Doug Whaley, granted, wasn't the general manager until 3 years ago. But Reggie McKenzie's he's turned that thing over. The Raiders started their season 0-10 just 2 years ago, finished 3-13. The Tennessee Titans, the Detroit Lions, who gassed their entire football administration department 13 months ago, they're headed to the playoffs. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers might be headed to the playoffs. There's a bunch of teams that have turned it around while the Bills continue to spin their wheels. So, yeah, I think you should blow it all up.
So, however, having said that, in your opinion, Tim, if the Bills beat Miami and they beat the Jets, 2 winnable games here, and they finish 9-7, do you think Rex is out, or do you think there is a chance that with all these, even though all these reports are out there, which we go back to the beginning of what you said, a lot of reports have been out there saying he's done, that you would think there is a chance he still comes back as a head coach next year?
Well, it sure becomes an inconvenient. It becomes inconvenient to fire a guy who's 9-7. And has been your most successful coach since Wade Phillips, predating this 17-year drought. So, the Bills have finished above 500 only twice in the last 17 years. 9-7 under Mike Mularkey. He quit. He actually declined to come back. Doug Marrone went 9-7 a couple of years ago. He quit. He declined to come back. He had an out clause in his contract. And now you might have a 9-7 coach that gets fired. I mean, how ridiculous is this? That the 3 most successful coaches didn't want to be here anymore or got fired. Yeah. So, yeah, it would be a bad look for the Bills if they were to unload on Rex Ryan, or unload him, I should say, while he has a winning record, not only this season but in his career. He went 8-8 last year in his first season with the Bills. So that's where it becomes an inconvenient situation, and where I was. Takes us full circle to the beginning of our conversation, where I was mentioning that things are backfiring on whoever did want Rex Ryan gone, because I think people are realizing that the Bills at least can't save face and still move on from Rex Ryan unless they get rid of everybody.
Tim Graham, Buffalo News. Always a pleasure having you on. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you and your family, and we'll talk to you soon after the first of the year, I'm sure.
Merry Christmas, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. That's Tim Graham.
Love that guy.
Buffalo News. Good job.